Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome back, everybody. I trust everyone's sufficiently fortified with caffeine to get through my presentation, but I promise to be to the point. So Brady, we're a public company headquartered in the UK, and we're focused on solutions for the natural resource space. So we started in the LME market for traders who bought and sell derivatives. We expanded into refined metal, raw material, and from there we went into power gas trading. So the commonality for us is anyone who's trading natural resources and increasingly recycling those products. So the market sectors that we serve today are commodities, that's metal and food, energy, power and gas, and recycling material. And within that environment, we deal with intermediaries. These are banks, brokers, trading companies. We deal with producers. This may be mining companies or power utilities or scrap reprocessors, and industrial companies, people who will be buying or selling commodities for their business. According to Comtech, they're the market-leading research company. That's a market size is about $2 billion per annum spend. Brady, we've grown from £5 million turnover 6 years ago to £27 million turnover last year, and we were ranked fourth globally in the commodity trading and risk management space. So today, everywhere in dark blue, our contention is everybody needs food, energy, metal, and increasingly will recycle it. Today, everywhere in dark blue, customers are in production using Brady software. So we started in the UK, then went to the States to South America, and increasingly we're selling business into Asia. Actually, there is a typo on this. We're not in North Korea, but we are in South Korea. So we have about 400 customers use our software. We have 10,000 or 13,000 end users of our product. And increasingly, we think there's still large parts of the market for us to go for. We haven't started in Africa, and there's more work for us to do in Asia. So the commodity natural resource market is a very large space. So where do we focus? So we are ranked as leaders in the European market. We're absolutely the #1 leader in metal trading, where that's metal from a mine, refined metal, or derivatives associated with it. We have a very strong European power base, and we are #1 in the US recycling market. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail of what that means. So just some business highlights. When I say that we're leaders in metal trading or recycling, so in 2015, major deals for us. We signed in the commodities space. There are 4 really big commodity companies. They're called the A, B, C, D. That's ADM, Bunge, Cargill, and the D is Dreyfus. Dreyfus selected Brady for their global metal trading business around the world. That's over 250 users in 8 locations, a very competitive tender. We're the clear leaders in the refined market. We extended our platform. We spent about £750,000 extending our platform from refined metal into concentrates. And in the last 2 years alone, we've signed £14.5 million of business in the concentrates or business. In the recycling market, recycling is a very large industry, and I'll talk to a little bit to that in due course. The world's largest recycling company is Sims. They're about a $3 billion turnover business. They have operations in 50 countries around the world, and they use Brady's solution initially in the North American markets, where they have 100 recycling facilities. We signed a deal with them in second half of last year for their Asia Pac business, and they are deploying us globally to run their recycling business. Last but not least, in the power market, EDF and GE, they built power station in France last year. They took our software for the tolling. This means they onboard gas into their power station and they produce power. They're using Brady software to do that. The software trend for us, increasingly, people are deploying software via the cloud. So of the 20 deals we did last year, 9 of them are cloud deployed. That means it's an air-hosted environment. The customers can log on very quickly, and this means that they get quick access to our software. We've also made a couple of acquisitions, which I'll talk to as I go forward, and I'm very excited about the development of our offshore development center in Bangalore. So let's go into one of these markets a little bit more depth. So when I say we're leaders in the recycling market, according to Recycling Today, the North American recycling business is a $100 billion turnover market. There are 1,600 members of ISRI, that's the North American Recycling Trade Body, and 900 members of the BIR, that's the International Recycling Business. So 2,500 recycling members. 7 of the top 10 North American recycling companies use Brady to run their business. So here we have the name Sims. They've got 14% market share. David Joseph 5, Schnitzer 7, Alta and Omni. So over 50% of North American recycling goes through Brady's software. So what does that mean? So what do we do in the recycling space? So here's a typical life cycle for a recycling company. We bought a dispatch application system. A driver is going to collect some recycled material. He gets in his lorry, he drives up to, let's say he's going up to Leeds. As he leaves, his controller can see exactly via GPS technology where the driver is. When he arrives at the facility in Leeds to connect his goods, he'll take his handheld, he will scan the bin barcode to notify his dispatch controller he's got the goods and he's heading back to base. On the way back, the dispatch controller says, well, actually, we've got to pick up in Birmingham, reroute to Birmingham, and he can go pick up his goods in Birmingham, barcode his collection, and then head back to base. So if you're dealing with recycled materials, low-value materials, the logistics and the optimization of that are very important. So having got back to base, we're now going to go and weigh the goods. So you drive your lorry in, you weigh it. You're on a weighbridge tower. The weighbridge tower, you've got a person sitting there says, here comes the lorry, we've weighed it. As it goes in, the goods are weighed, the driver drives off, he then dumps it in a pile, and then the pile will go into a shredding unit. So they'll let's say take a lorry load of cars, you take a car, you put it in a shredder, within 30 seconds, the car is reduced to bits of metal about that long. They're then put into bin. If they go through magnets, so you separate the magnetic material from the glass and plastic, and then this recycled material is put into bins, and those bins are then typically sent off to further reprocessing. So Sims, at their peak, were the biggest container handler in the port of Los Angeles. They run 15,000 containers a month of recycled material that comes in, they shred it up in their processing plants, they put it in bins and send it back to China, where it's further recycled, either professionally or manually or industrially. So our software allows all the contract management. So when the driver weighs, he weighs his lorry, he then goes to the place to get paid. He'll get paid electronically for his goods. He then drives out, he's weighed it, and then Sims will deal with all the processing contract management. The reason Sims decided to go globally with Brady, the recycling market's been quite hard. Prices are down. The scrap companies are trying to manage their inventory. Galdino's the CEO of Sims came in and said, look, I need to manage my scrap processing. He can use our software and drill down to individual contract levels or individual scrap suppliers and see whether that's a profitable customer, whether it's a profitable trade. This is why they're deploying Brady software globally. Some of the other drivers in this industry are there's increased political pressure to recycle things. What you can throw in a landfill now, you can't throw things in a landfill now that you used to throw in a landfill some time ago. The scrap guys are under pressure to drive more efficiency. And so what they're doing is they're driving more and more collection of recycled material through bigger and bigger shredding units. And so the optimization of that supply is tremendously important. Some of the other challenges they have is not only managing the inventory. For a recycling company, Sims, 70% of the value of that company is the value of scrap in their yards. Our software allows them to manage that inventory, value it on a mark-to-market basis. We also deal with all the fraud prevention. So I'd be careful if you, I'm sure nobody in this room would, but if you were to steal the lead from the church roof, be careful. These days, when you take your lorry to a scrapyard, they'll photograph the front of the lorry, the back of the lorry, the contents of the lorry. They'll take a photograph of the driver, and all that's stored with the transaction. And then, furthermore, increasingly, so for in the UK, if you go to a recycling facility with some recycled material, they have to pay you electronically. So there's full audit control. So our software deals with all the contract management and processing associated with it. And so for us, working with the big industry leaders, we've already got the North American market. Our strategy is to start to expand internationally with them. So our recycling business is about 20% of Brady's revenues. 40% of our revenues comes from the energy market. So here we're dealing with power generation. So for example, last year we signed a deal with Brookfield. They built a wind farm in Ireland. As they build that wind farm, they're putting power into the grid. They use our software to connect to the grid and deal with all the processing, planning, scheduling, nomination of the power. Once it goes into the grid, the energy traders will trade around the marketplace. They'll buy and sell spot power. So you buy electricity on a half-hourly or hourly basis. And when you buy and sell power, you then have to schedule and nominate that. So you've got time series as you commit to the grid. If you and I, hopefully when you're buying some Brady shares, if I fail to settle with you, it's probably not the end of the world. But if you're committing to putting power into the grid, if you don't commit power to the grid when you're supposed to, then someone's going to be short. Or conversely, if I've got too much power generation from my site, I can't store power, I have to put it somewhere. So I put it to the grid, I'm going to be charged by the grid owners. So we do all the scheduling and nomination and all the cross-border trading associated with that. We then deal with the end financial risk management. I've got a big portfolio of power trading. I can model very complex time series. And we built a solution with Statkraft. Statkraft do a third of Norway's power. Their end customers can log onto a website. They can see their historical power consumption. They can model their forward power consumption, and they can either decide to trade in the spot market with a customer, fix the power prices, or partially cap the power prices. So our software allows their customers to effectively manage their power consumption. So that's great. So what's happening in the energy markets overall? Well, there's clearly a drive towards increase of renewable energy distribution. So we've all read about solar powers and wind farms to get greenhouse gases down. There's also political pressure to get away from nukes. So Germany will be nuclear free by 2023. They say on a windy, sunny day, there's enough renewable energy generation in Germany to power the country. So that's great. So the challenges are, if you go to renewables, you have very unpredictable power generation. So if it's windy or it's not windy, you know for 4 hours in advance, what your power output's going to be. If you have a nuclear power plant, you're very certain of what your power output is going to be. So there's going to be very unpredictable price volatility. So for example, Energy Denmark is a customer of ours. They have coal-fired power stations. They're in Denmark. They built wind farms, and they built solar panels. And they also have a transmission line into Germany. So if they are short power or power prices go up or down, then Energy Denmark can just import and export power across lines. On a particular day, the wind wasn't blowing, the sun wasn't shining, and their coal power plant went down. Normally in those situations, they would import power from Germany through the transmission lines. It just happened to be, it was a quadruple witching hour, and in that quadruple witching hour, that transmission line was down so that they couldn't get power from Germany. So for Energy Denmark, for 1 megawatt of electricity, the price went from 70 euros per megawatt to 2,000. And again, if you're in the market, you're a consumer, you're driving your industry or your homes, you need power. Clearly, the challenges for the companies is managing the volatility of power prices. I've got 1 minute to go. So I'm sure everybody's been reading the news on commodity prices going down down the tubes, oil's falling. This demographic is just to show some of the macro drivers for the commodity markets. These bubbles show the size of the bubble is the population. The y-axis is the GDP per capita. So between 1650, Industrial Revolution in the UK, this is the size of the population. The increase in wealth went from under $1,500 to just over $1,500. In the US, from 1800 to 1900, we saw a pickup. What's been happening in India and China is the size of the bubble shows you the demand, increase in demand, or increase in GDP growth, what's happening in China and India. McKinsey estimate that 2.5 billion people in the emerging markets will enter the middle classes over the next 20 years. They're going to want the same tellies, cars, fridges that we all have. One of our customers is Alaris. They deal with cans, recycled cans. The way they look at the world is, in the States, you use 1 aluminium can per person per day. In Europe, it's 1 aluminium can per person per week. In China, it's 1 aluminium can per person per year. So as we see this growth in the middle classes in India and China, there's inevitably going to be demand for natural resources. And Brady, our job is to provide the technology to allow customers to buy and sell and trade those natural resources. In closing, economic population growth will drive demand for natural resources. Not for me to call the bottom of the commodity markets. Technology innovation will require step change to feed that. Brady, we're increasingly winning market share around the globe with some fantastic names. Cloud solutions are the way forward. And next step for Brady is to leverage our offshore development. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm available for questions.